Hello and welcome to Between the Lines, the podcast that introduces you to some of Canada's lesser-known authors and writers who have either yet to begin or have just begun to make their mark on the writing world. In this season, our third, we will focus solely on Canadian poets and their poetry. Some of my guests have already been published, either self or traditionally, while others have yet to take that plunge. I think it is not only important to give each and every one of them an equal opportunity to be discovered, but to be heard as well. I'm your host, Randy Lacey, and I invite you to join me between the lines. Hello and welcome to Between the Lines.
Hi.
On today's show, I will be speaking with Canadian writer and poet Lori Gree. Hello, Lori, and welcome to Season 3 of Between the Lines.
Hi, Randy. Thanks for having me on.
You know what? It's my pleasure, and it'll be my pleasure until this hits the airwave. So I will cherish this moment until the rest of the world gets to hear it.
That's good.
That's something new I had to add. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of the interview, I wonder if you might like to, give our listeners a brief summary or brief rundown of who Lori Gree is and what makes Lori Lori.
I see. Well, first and foremost, I'm a writer and a poet, as you probably know.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be here.
Exactly. I have a 14-year-old daughter who I love very much.
You better.
And an aging Shih Tzu.
Bless you.
He's getting up there. Thanks. I'm an avid fan of Stephen King. So as you can imagine, I love writing horror, dark fiction, gothic poems, anything like that. My spare time, if I'm not writing, I am reading lots of books, and I'm also watching a lot of TV. I think a lot of TV, people say that, people who watch a lot of TV aren't really, thinkers or creative people. But I think they're stories. They're stories, just like, reading a book or anything like that. And I love things like character development and character arcs. And I love to see the villains, what makes them tick, what made them villains, and things like that. I watch a lot of things like Walking Dead.
You must have loved Gotham.
Yes, that was a good one. I watch a lot of Breaking Bad reruns. That's my favorite show ever.
I'm laughing because I used to have a goatee, a tightly cropped goatee, and with my bald head, I looked like...
I see.
Do you see it?
Yes, I can see it right now. I can see you in that role.
Yep.
Heisenberg.
What else is that? What else makes you you? Not yo-yo, but you. Ay. Where do you live?
A fun fact about me, I go for a walk every morning, and I walk through a cemetery every morning. It's very big, and it has lots of trails through it, but I said if I was ever dating again, I'd have to put that in my dating profile, that I love long walks through the cemetery.
That might raise some flags.
I might not get a lot of bites on that one, but...
Well, it depends if they're into vampires or not.
Yeah.
We're running with your theme here. We're running with your theme. Is that it, or is there any other fun facts?
A really long time ago when I was 18. I don't want to give away my age, but that was a really long time ago. I was in a car accident. And we hit head on with an oncoming vehicle. I was not wearing a seatbelt, so I was thrown out of the car through the windshield. And when the truck rolled over, it landed on top of me.
Ooh.
Yes. So that's the biggest thing. The what do you say? The hardest thing I've ever had to go through is recovery after that.
I bet.
Yeah.
And here you are.
Yes. Yep. I think every day after that. Like I said, I went through a lot. I broke both my hips, both my legs, my ankles, my left arm. It was a lot.
Wow.
So, and funny thing about that is, I've tried to write about it, like write a story, write a short story, write memoir, and I can't seem to do it. It just doesn't sound right to me.
Have you ever? Go ahead.
I think maybe that, I don't know, I'm too close to it. Maybe I don't know.
Have you considered trying to write a fictional autobiography?
No, I have not.
Try that approach. You're
That's
welcome.
different.
You're welcome. I've been, since...
I will put you in the credits.
Well, that's fine. You can do that if you so wish. After my first book that I published in 2013, I started writing a memoir. I'm still writing the memoir from my 13 years living on the streets, but it's been really hard to write. And then I thought, you know what, maybe it'll be easier if I turn part of it into a fictional autobiography. And you know what? It's been working.
Well, thanks for the tip, because like I said, I can't seem to write about it.
Well, change the perspective.
Okay.
Well, there you go. So if there's nothing else that you want to share, or is there?
No. I'll leave that for another episode or something.
Oh, we can do that too. I like other episodes. You want to say hi to your daughter so she can hear herself?
Hey, Lynn. Love you.
All right. So normally at this junction, I would jump right into the question period of the show. But this season, we are focusing on Canadian poets and their poetry.
Right.
And which you qualify, by the way. And so with that being said, I think this would be a good time, a better time than any other, to jump right in and, so to speak. And I believe you have a poem that you want to read for us?
Sorry, my voice cracked there.
That's all right. It's better than my voice. This
is a poem that I wrote 2021. And I submitted it to a magazine for their Halloween edition. And it won second place.
Wow.
And it's the poetic form, I believe it's called how do you pronounce it? Design. It's got 10 lines. So I will read it now. It's called Unhallowed. The first frost bites, leaves turn to ginger fire, and trees stand naked in late autumn sun, while demons sing in an unholy choir, whispering, "It has only just begun." We cast the spell, it cannot be undone. Dark shadows obscure the October sky, with death waiting inside the witch's eye. To black angels they ever shall be bound, withering to bone as the ashes fly. At last they lie on unhallowed ground.
That's pretty cool.
Thank you.
And what inspired that?
Actually, what inspired it, I don't know if you watch scary movies at all, but there's a scene in It.
Which one, the original or the remake?
Well, I think it's in both because he's in love with the girl and he writes her a little poem about her hair being ginger fire.
Okay.
Because she's a redhead. And in the autumn, like in the fall, I just love the leaves as they turn different colors. And ginger, I like ginger.
See, you're definitely in Ontario, because out here out west, we don't have the dramatic changing of colors of the leaves.
Oh, you're missing out.
Oh, no, I grew up in Ottawa, so I'm familiar with them.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I'm also visually impaired, so I don't see colors.
Okay.
But
yes.
even if I could, I know that, because I've been across the country many times, I know that out west, that dramatic color change of leaves doesn't really happen like it does in Ontario and Quebec.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's my one of my most favorite times of the year.
I can certainly relate to that. I do miss my days of being in Ontario as much as I enjoy not being there. I swore I'd never live in Alberta, but I've been here 15 years now. So.
Oh, well, never say never.
Well, there you go. That's a good movie too. Anyway, how long did it take you to write that poem?
I think it took me a day.
Okay. So I'll ask, maybe I'll ask this later after we're done. Let's go into the question period portion of the show. That's hard to say, question period portion. Question number 1. Mm-hmm. Do you have a preferred style of poetry, i.e. sonnet, limerick, haiku, etc.?
I would say that my preferred style of poetry, preferably to have some sort of rhyme scheme.
Yay!
I love rhyming poetry. I know a lot of modern poetry is free verse, and I'm not dissing it. I still love it, but for me, my favorite is rhyming poetry, Gothic poetry for sure.
Now, when you say Gothic, you mean those lengthy epics, or what do you mean?
I mean anything dark.
Okay.
Anything dark, like witches, a cemetery, like anything that, Poe is one of my favorite poets, so anything Edgar Allan Poe. Yeah.
What are you doing for the next 20 years of your life? No, I'm kidding. I'm a huge Poe fan, so.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's definitely one of my favorites.
Have you ever tried to emulate his style?
I did. For one of my poems is being published in it's called Evermore, and it's all poetry inspired by Poe.
Oh, nice.
So my poem, Hatred of a Minute, is in that one.
Okay.
Because the line inspired me. How does it go? Years of love have been forgot in the hatred of a minute. Mm-hmm. And that has stayed with me for years and years. It's so true. Sometimes in life that just happens,
I do. I very much do.
Yeah.
I've had this conversation with several of the people that I interviewed for the show on the subject of Poe. Mm-hmm. And if you do a Google search on Poe style writing contests, you won't
Mm-hmm.
find very many.
No.
There were 2 that I found, and 1 is now defunct.
Oh.
And I'm actually, and you'll hear it here for the first time on Between the Lines, that
Mm-hmm.
I'm contemplating starting up a yearly, once a year, poetry or a contest in the style of Poe.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm going to look for sponsors and all kinds of stuff. I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of people that are interested in it.
Yes.
So keep your ears open. I'll let you know. You're in my group.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so that's your favorite preferred?
Preferably, yeah.
Preferably, okay. When you write, do you stick to a certain theme? Love, nature, death, or do you just write whatever comes out?
Well, definitely anything dark. I keep coming back to that, but that's who I am. That's what I write. Death is first and foremost.
Well, you did have probably a near-death experience.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what sparked that.
But even before that, when I was, I forget how old I was. Do you remember the old show Quincy?
Yes.
Yes. He was a medical examiner, like he, basically a coroner, I guess. So yep. I watched him all the time, and I just became obsessed with like death and how did that person die, and like what happens to the body when they die, like. And it stayed with me throughout the years. I've just been like, I don't know, unnaturally obsessed with death.
You are aware that show is based on a real life character?
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, I did not know that.
An LA County coroner.
Awesome. Yeah.
So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that you're probably a fan of Criminal Minds.
Yep. I do like Criminal Minds. My mother's obsessed with that show.
I am just in the process of watching the entire series. And I'm in season 6.
That's a lot.
Yes. I'm in season 6, episode 6, actually.
Okay.
I love the show. I've got probably the second time going through it all. Once when it was current, and now again twice since it's still current. It came back on the air, so
yeah.
It's gotten darker. The language has gotten a lot darker.
Yes.
Have you been following the latest?
Not the latest, but
season 16.
It's definitely gotten much darker.
Oh yeah, but I mean, like they're dropping F-bombs and everything in it now.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's to hear Rossi drop an F-bomb is like,
yeah.
What?
You're like, wait. What is that?
Exactly, right? Anyway, I'm not going to give any more of the show away, but it's gotten darker in its language. I'm still watching. So, next question. What or who is your muse?
Well, that's a hard question.
That's why I ask it.
Because I find everything is my muse. Whether it's, my daughter, obviously, love, because, I might write dark and I'm obsessed with death, but I feel very deeply. So if I've fallen in love, then I've fallen in love hard. So it's hard. It's hard to say. I can find almost anything to be my muse, but definitely love. All types of love. It's just, I never knew, like when I was growing up, I just thought love was a feeling, an emotion, kind of a a one-dimensional thing, but it's really like there's so many levels and, you know, so many types. And as I've grown older, like I just like, I want to give an example. People talk about finding the love of your life, your soulmate. And when my daughter was born, I felt like I had met my soulmate. And it sounds weird. It sounds different. My husband, obviously, like I loved him very deeply, or I still love him. I shouldn't talk about him like he's dead.
Is he absent?
No. He'll be listening to this going, what?
Wait a second.
But it was just that deep level of love that I was unaware of that level. And I'm finding it really hard to describe it right now. It's just like I said.
This is going to be a funny question for a writer. Put it into words.
Yeah. I wonder if I can find one, you know, like a writer. But yeah, like I said, I love her so much. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. You know, I have 2 boys, and one of them's getting married next month.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And I haven't written a whole lot about my boys.
No.
I don't know why. I mean, they are everything to me. You'd think I'd be able to find no shortage of words to want to say about them, but I think it's because they know that I don't need to explain it to anybody.
It's funny you should say that, because I've never written anything for my daughter or about my daughter.
Well, there's been a couple, but certainly not as many as I could have. You said earlier that really you don't need a muse to write. You just write because anything can inspire you.
Yes.
I used to boast about that. Was a thing that I used to do, is brag about. I don't need a topic to write about. You can tell me anything and I'll write you a poem, and I've been challenged on it many times. And you know, I was able to back up my words, but I used to, whatever, man, just give me a subject, I'll write about it.
Yeah, exactly. I wholeheartedly agree with you.
Now, you keep saying you love writing on dark subjects, but does that necessarily make you a dark person? Is that your nature?
I'm kind of like half and half.
So you're like coffee cream.
Yeah. Like I love dark horror, goth, but then, you know, there are some love stories that I openly weep about. So, you know, I have a heart. It might be, you know, a dark heart, but I still have one.
Well, are you able to see the bright side of life?
Sometimes.
Has your life ever gotten so dark that you can't see light?
It has in the past.
Okay.
It has in the past, and I think about it sometimes. I think about it a lot, and I think about how far I've come from those days where all I saw or felt was darkness. So I like I said, I write about dark things, and I think it's cathartic for me. But
now you're using author words, cathartic.
Ooh, I sound really smart now.
Stephen King would be proud.
Oh, awesome.
That goes to our conversation before we started the
Yeah.
interview. Okay, my eye just got blurry because I was
Oh,
laughing.
no.
Did you answer the question sufficiently for your own liking?
I think so.
You think so?
Because it was a difficult question for me. So
Well, you're welcome. Then I'll let you have that sip, and I will ask you the next question, which is number 4. What is the hardest part of writing a poem for you?
For me is because I like rhyming poetry so much. I do a lot of rhyming poetry, and the hardest part for me is to find a natural rhyme instead of it sounding, forced. Like, oh, she just stuck that word in there to rhyme, instead of like flowing naturally.
You sound so much like me. You've read my poetry. You just told me that you have one of my books, so you know that I love to rhyme.
Yeah. But that's for me the hardest part, is to find that natural rhyme, that natural rhythm. Hopefully it comes off well in the poetry that I have written.
So when you sit down to write, do you sit down with something in mind, or do you sit down and let it come to you, or what's that process?
It depends. Sometimes I sit down because I have, there's an open call in a magazine, and sometimes they have a theme. Sometimes they don't, but sometimes, that's my goal. I'm sitting down. This is the criteria for the poem that they want, and this is what I'm working with. Other times it's just it's feelings that just need to come out. They need to come out. I need to write them down. Sometimes when I'm not doing rhyming poetry, it's just free verse, and it's just like, I need to get this out. So it depends, really.
So when you write the free verse, is that stuff more like just for you, or is that something that you would say? Yes. Okay, yeah.
It's more just for me. Whoops, I dropped something. Never mind. Yeah, it's mostly just for me. I have shared it, but it's more personal for me.
So when you're writing and you come to a spot where you just have nothing more to write at that point, not saying that the poem is done, but you just have nothing to add, what do you do? You said you don't like to force anything, so do you walk away and come back to it?
I put it on the shelf, or close my laptop, whatever I'm writing with, and I walk away.
And you revisit it later.
Yeah. And it could be, the next day. It could be, the next month. It depends on when, I'm ready to revisit that.
So I'm assuming a lot of what you're saying are things that I can certainly relate to, because I'm still there or doing that. But what does your unfinished folder look like? Is it full?
I think every writer's unfinished folder is full.
So, yeah, I mean, it's the way that I go about with my books is I write poetry for a year, and then in the next year I will edit and put it together and then put the book out. So it's just basically the previous year's poetry. And every year I've got a folder with poems that never saw the light of day, that were never finished. And so I think over the last 8-9 years, I have enough unfinished poems for about another 4 volumes.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Well, anybody who finds my stuff will be able to, hey, I can write a book off this.
Yeah, for sure.
That's you're absolutely right, though. Every writer's probably got at least one of those folders, eh?
Yeah, like whether they're a poet or a novelist or whatever.
Yeah.
I would.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I would say that the hardest part of writing poetry is, actually showing it to people, submitting it, just because, it feels like, you're opening your chest and, your heart is falling out. And
Don't get ahead of yourself, because you know the questions are coming up.
Oh no.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I feel like.
Do you have another poem you want to read for us?
Yes.
I don't mean to put you on the spot or anything, but this is an interview with a poet.
Well, I have poems around me all the time. So
there you go.
This poem I really liked. Sorry. That's the introduction to my poem. This one, I submitted it to a magazine, and I was very bummed that they didn't accept it. But here goes. Like I said, I like a lot of rhyme, and I write dark. So here is On the Devil's Wings. When midnight breezes return to blow, you'll find me there beneath the shadow of doubts that linger across the stone, under a waning moon, cold earth below. I wander again, no longer alone. Once more alive, I am sinew and bone. Your blood coursing through my veins, as others join us, pleasures yet unknown. The apple falls, unlocking the chains of dreams unleashed, eating up the night. A flash of teeth, my lips now stained with honey and blood, such rich champagne. The cock crows twice before first light, and dark times end in morning. We burn to ashes, the devil's delight. Descending down, our black wings take flight.
I thought you said you write dark.
So it's so light and fluffy, that one.
Oh yeah. Yes. What were you feeling when you wrote that?
I was feeling. I was thinking about religion, actually, just because my mother's very religious, and I grew up with, between two opposing religions. They couldn't be more different. And I've battled with those feelings my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Just not being a particularly religious person myself. So
religious people scare me.
Yeah, they do.
I'm a man of faith, but religious people scare me.
Yes. So that's what it felt like to me. Like I find that in my writing as well, like my novel that I'm working on, it's got some religious themes in it as well. So that's what I was thinking when I wrote that poem.
And did you come to a conclusion after writing it about anything?
I usually come to the same conclusion that the conclusion I usually come to is that hell is basically right here. Like, we're living it. I don't believe that there's, a fiery inferno below.
But what if you're wrong? Anyway,
what if I'm wrong?
That's a topic for another show.
I always liked, sunbathing, so there you go. I like it hot.
All right. Hey, I make hot sauces, by the way. I don't know if your sister told you. Wait. I just drew a blank for a second there. When you first started writing poetry, were you the show it to everyone kind of writer, or did you keep it all to yourself?
Oh God, I kept it all to myself. and part of me is super glad I did that, because some of the poetry I used to write, you ever gone back and been like, what is this?
I have found recently some stuff that I wrote back in the 80s, and what were you thinking, man? And what drugs were involved? Actually, I never wrote while under the influence of anything.
No?
I've tried.
No Stephen King novels came out of you?
No, like I said, I didn't start writing anything but I've always written poetry up until about 4 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And I just started my trying my hand at different things, short stories and other things. And so, yeah, no, it was always, I can remember once and only once on the banks of the Fraser River in British Columbia with my then girlfriend, camping at a campsite and doing some natural stimuli that ended up me talking with Flipper.
Oh.
in the Fraser River. And then I tried to write something and I couldn't write.
Oh, okay.
It just wouldn't come. And but then again, I was trying to start a fire in the rain too. So that's another story. No, I've never tried to really consciously write anything under the influence of anything.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I've never done that either.
I wouldn't recommend it, but some people say that drugs expand the mind. I don't really believe that.
Yeah, like unless you count, drinking, like wine, like I've done that.
Yeah, but for me, drinking wasn't a social thing. It was an all in or an all out.
Ah, I see.
There was none of that happy middle ground.
Oh, okay.
And same with my drug intake. It was
another story.
An overindulgence. Let's just say everything that I've done with an overindulgent attitude.
Right.
And that's just, yeah. Anyway, so you were a keep it to yourself because it was personal and it was you're bearing your heart and soul.
Yes.
And I would assume therapeutic.
Yep.
Yeah.
Even today, I sometimes find it hard to share my poetry.
So when you enter contests then with the poems, do you put less of yourself within your content?
No. I think I put as much as I can into every poem.
So what changes then? That allows you to share it?
To me, I think if I think I can share it, it's because I love it that much. Like I said before, my poem there on the Devil's Wings, like I loved that poem. I just loved it so much. And I'm like, oh, for sure, they're going to publish this. And they passed on it. And you're like, what? You just broke my heart.
Did they give you a reason why at least?
No, they just said they were just going to pass on it for this time and to keep submitting to them in the future. So who knows? Maybe they will.
Maybe one day, right? I don't normally ask this question, but do you really care what people think about your poetry?
Do I? Yes.
Why?
I don't know.
And this will eventually tie into the last question that I'm going to ask you. So think on that.
Okay.
And I mean, like I said, you know the questions in advance because you pick them.
Yeah.
And you know what? I find doing that with my guests makes it easier for them. And there's so much that can come out of each question that I can ask in between.
Right.
Which you've now discovered. And in talking with your sister, who I've already interviewed. Yes, folks, this is a family show. And by the way, people, I've never done this in any other episode before. I want to take the opportunity to acknowledge those people who take the time out of their busy days and schedules to listen to us.
Yes.
Because that's why we do this.
Exactly.
So thank you, people.
Thanks.
And every video I've learned about or watched about learning how to do a podcast says thank the people as much as possible. So
yes.
I apologize for not saying thank you in the past, and I'll probably edit this out anyway. But is poetry dying, or do you find, or think rather, that there is still enough interest in poetry to keep on writing it? And I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about people reading it.
Right.
Because we'll always write it.
Yeah, I'm always reading. So I don't think that at all. I don't think it's a dying art. I know of several, writer friends of mine that write poetry, and it's just I think, you know what, it reminds me of that quote by Helena Bonham Carter, where she says, I think everything in life is art, and I think, as long as we live and breathe, we will always have poetry. Fair
enough. And she's a very dark individual herself. So maybe that, anyway, I love your work, by the way, Helena. Over the centuries, poetry has seen heights and it's sunk into lows. Like during the Renaissance, poetry was huge, and then it waned, and then it resurfaced, and then it died. And are we in a lull, or is it gaining in popularity, or is it lost popularity?
I think it's gaining in popularity.
Okay.
I've seen several more poetry books in the last 5 years, as opposed to, in the early 2000s.
Okay.
We have, there was 9/11, and, a lot of big things have happened, and big things inspire big emotions, and a lot of questions. So not just, the pandemic happened, obviously, and
there was a
lot of, somewhere in the world, there was a pandemic, and it inspired a lot of writing. And not just, poems or writing about the pandemic in particular, just dealing with the emotions of it, like the isolation and fear and things like that. It really just inspired us.
I'm laughing for a reason, because at the onset of the quote unquote air quotes, folks, at the onset of the pandemic, where they were telling us to isolate and all that sort of jazz, I started saying, you know what, isolation is easy. I've been doing it since 1983. I got kicked out onto the streets. I've been doing it since 1983, right? So this is easy. Give me something hard.
Piece of cake.
Give me something hard. Challenging. Challenge me. But the physical contact, I used to be a hugger, and, I miss that. And, on the streets, I protected young runaways from, pedophiles and all kinds of predators and stuff like that. Right. And carrying on into, my after street life, I volunteer with youth, and how youth are clingy, and some of them are very emotional, give me a hug or whatever, right? That's what I missed during that whole.
They we need that touch. So
that's all I'm going to say about that. But you know what? Poetry, the written word in book, like you and I do, as it surges in popularity and then dies in popularity, it's always remained in music though, and there's always been music.
Always music.
Always music, and you know, anybody who's a lyricist will tell you that it's poetry to music.
Exactly. That's what I thought when I was younger. I'm like, this is just poetry.
And that's what got me hooked on poetry, is when I realized that, wait a second, it's poetry.
Yeah. I was the same way. I'm like, this is poetry.
See what I mean?
Poetry that rhymed.
Well, not all the time, but yes. Do you ever hope to be published one day? Either traditionally or self? Or do you have a preference?
I'd love to be traditionally published, but I think I've been thinking this year about self-publishing a poetry chapbook, because I've been gathering all my poems. I'm in the midst of it right now, gathering.
You don't look like you're in a mist.
Just gathering all my poems that have the same kind of theme, and because I've written some poems that I really like that aren't about dark things. But you know, I think I would love to put out a poetry chapbook about my poems about love and death.
I'm probably going to mess the pronunciation of this up very, very bad. It's French, so forgive my bad French. Have you ever heard of a tête-à-tête?
Mm-hmm.
You know what they are, right? Those kind of books?
Yeah.
So, and I'm probably, anyway, I approached a publisher. He's got his own small publishing firm. And I what do you call those when you send
Query?
A pitch?
Okay, yep.
I sent them a pitch for a book, a tête-à-tête book of poetry where, and for those of you who do not know what that is, it's you read the book one way, you flip it over, and then you read it. There's a different on the backside, right?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, so because they haven't really been popular since the 1600s. And,
yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah. So I pitched the idea of doing that, like poetry or stories, themed though. So like one side, let's say light, and the other side dark. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So anyway, he loved the idea. So I don't know if he's running with it or not, but maybe that's something you might want to think about.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, there's another idea I've given you. Free.
You should be my agent.
I don't know if I could be an agent. You know what? Somebody asked me to be an agent back in the 80s for their rock group.
Oh, yeah? That's awesome.
Yeah. What were they called? Oh, I can't even remember the name of the band now. Anyway, so chapbook or so you'd like to be traditionally published?
Yeah.
Why?
But I think that's more the novel side of things,
okay,
as opposed to my poetry.
Makes sense. Yeah. All right, so that was 7 questions plus, but what you didn't know is that there's a mysterious 8th question that I ask all my guests.
Oh.
Well, you probably did
nowhere.
Because your sister probably told you, and you probably listened to some of the episodes anyway. But so there is a mysterious 8th question that you didn't even see. So I'm going to ask you this now.
Okay.
I hope you're ready for this. It's pretty deep. Can you discuss a specific theme or subject that you often explore in your poetry?
I see where you were going before when I was talking about religion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, I explore that theme a lot because of the way I grew up. I married a Catholic, and it's been with me all my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I have definitely explored religion in all my writing, whether it be poetry, in my novel. And obviously, like I had said before, death. It's just been obsessed with death. So yeah,
what did you think of Anne Rice?
I loved Anne Rice. I know she wrote a few things and then she regretted writing those things when she was...
Oh, you're talking about her adult content?
Yes.
What was that movie with Dan Aykroyd and Rosie O'Donnell?
Oh, I can't remember.
Something Out of Eden or...
East of Eden? Is that what it is?
No, East of Eden was James Dean.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I know what you're talking about.
That was based on one of her books.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow. But I loved her writing, and
so the vampire series.
Yep, the vampires, the Mayfair witches, those were my favorite. But like I said, she was what do you call it? She was Catholic, but a non-practicing Catholic.
Before she died, she later converted to Christianity.
Yeah.
But I think one of her last books, if I might be mistaken on this, what was it? Out of Egypt? A story about Jesus and Mary and Joseph when they left Egypt to go back to Israel.
I can't remember that one.
Well, it's towards the end. Anyway, I loved Anne Rice's novels, her old vampire series.
Yes.
I think there was 9-10 books in the series.
Oh, I can't remember.
Well, it's Interview with the Vampire,
Yeah, there's like the Vampire Armand, the Vampire Lestat.
Memnoch
the Devil, yep.
Yeah. Just a really good Queen of the Damned.
Yeah. See, there's so many.
Yeah. I did enjoy her writing style. So anyway, yeah. I'm going to ask you one more question because I think it's important to get this out there as well. But who do you write for? Do you write for yourself? Do you write for others? Do you is there a purpose behind your write? Like, because we talked about catharsis. Hello,
cathartic.
Yes, we use that big word. So is it a catharsis for you, or is it you're writing for other people, hopefully that it will be something that they can get out of it, or what have you?
A lot of the time,
or do you write for profit, or do you because
no.
What's that?
God, no.
Well, yeah. Well, when you get your first book out, is it because you want to make money off it, or is it because you want to have something out there, or leave a legacy behind, or?
Money is always nice, but I would just love to have something out there that people can read, a piece of me, that can live on.
I hear that.
Yeah.
Because
I mostly write poetry because it's cathartic, like I said, or it's a love letter. It's a love letter to someone. It's a love letter to a feeling. It's just, I feel like it's, like I said, it just feels like a love letter to different people, to different things, to myself.
I was waiting for
God.
That. One of the things I always say, and it's actually in some of my books as well, is I don't write for profit. I profit from writing.
Oh, that's the way I would look at it. Yeah.
I get so much more when people acknowledge what I've written than, the dollars that come as a result of it.
Yeah.
And the other thing I put in my other books is something I truly believe and totally forgot. I don't write because, no, how does it go? I don't write because there's something I have to say, but rather because there's something you might need to hear.
Yes, that's a good one too.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
What advice would you give somebody who says that they can't write a poem?
I think everyone can write a poem.
So do I.
I think everyone is capable of writing a poem. It doesn't matter if you're, a Hell's Angel biker guy or the girl that makes your latte in the morning. I think everyone can write a poem. It's like I said before, it's all about feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously everyone has feelings, right? Well, most people have feelings.
Oh, yeah, I do. No, you're absolutely right. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I do believe that everybody has it within them to put their emotions down on paper.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
At the beginning, it might not make sense, or it might not come across the way that you're intending it to, but the potential to refine, and that's basically what writing is just, putting something down and then refining it. Right.
So obviously, and don't try too hard. Like if you just let it out,
Absolutely. Is that the only advice you'd have, or just write it? Just do it.
Well, just write it, or if you want to learn about it, take a class. There are free classes available to show you different types of poetry. You might like one form and not the other, so take a class if you really want to learn. They're out there.
Yeah, there's what was it called now? Open Learning or something like that, and they've got a short brief course called How to Write a Poem.
Oh, okay.
And it's like 8 parts or whatever like that, and you go at your own speed, and it's I took a course through the Hadley School for the Blind called The Elements of Poetry. And that was basically to get me back into an education mindset, because it'd been like 25 years since I've been in school, and it was the easiest thing for me to reintegrate myself into that mindset. So, but yeah, there's all kinds of courses out there that are free, or at least very inexpensive, to help people guide them into that. Have you considered that? Have you done it? Will you do it again?
I have done it. I've taken a couple of free courses, just because I wanted to learn about different types of poetry. Like, I have my favorite kinds, and then there's, I want to learn how to do it differently, Yeah. And I took a couple free courses. I've thought about taking others.
I'm laughing again because I was just thinking, you get what you pay for, though.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes, yes. No, that's all good. We're going to move into section 2 here. We're going to go into part 2 called Shameless Plugging.
Shameless plugging.
This is where you get to talk about, just talk about the stuff you've written. We've acknowledged that you don't have a book yet.
I don't have a book yet.
We won't ask that question, but we have other questions.
Emphasis on yet.
Yet. And I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah.
So we'll go right into the second question of part 2. Are you currently working on anything? And if so, how close to completion is it?
Well, I've mentioned my poetry chapbook.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting it together. I would say by the, I don't know, springtime, I should be able to have that finished and have some help getting it together and, publishing that. My sister is self-published before. I know you have, Randy.
Yep.
So I have a few people I could ask for advice.
Feel free to lean on me if you need it.
Absolutely.
I've got 10 books so far and working on the 11th.
Yeah.
So I'd be more than happy to lend a hand wherever I can.
And I not just poetry, but I've been writing my novel for a while, and I hope to have at least the complete first draft by the end of the year.
Oh, nice.
So, and then I will polish it up and send it off to an editor, and that'll be published, I don't know, sometime in 2024 when I receive millions of dollars.
Well, these things take time. I'm writing a novel as well, and I'm currently on my first draft of the same novel.
Oh, I feel you. Yeah.
If you had to choose one of your, you don't have any books, so if you had to choose one of your poems as a favorite, which one would it be, and why?
Oh gosh.
How do you like me now?
That's an even harder question.
That's why I get paid the big bucks.
Well, I have a few favorites, but we don't have all day. I think my favorite poem of recent months is the poem, that I wrote for my father.
Okay.
My father passed away in December.
My condolences.
Thank you. And I took it really hard. I was very close to him growing up. And I won't cry. I have been dealing with losing him for a long time because he had dementia. And, it's been a long time since he really was somebody I could talk to. But even still, when he passed away, I took it really hard. And I wrote him a poem, which, he wasn't a poetry kind of guy, but I thought this was my last goodbye and my love letter to my father. So I think that's my favorite recently, which is odd because it doesn't rhyme at all. It's free verse. I've been preaching about rhyming poetry this whole time, and this poem that I really like does not rhyme.
But again, it was more for you than anybody else.
Yes. It wasn't for a magazine or anything like that. I
got your back, Lori. I understood.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And yeah, it's hard losing somebody. My a half brother that I only found out I had 10 years ago.
Uh-huh.
He passed away in December as well at the age of 50. So just a young buck.
My condolences.
It's always hard, I guess, and we all take it in different ways. I can tell that you are getting uncomfortable there because you started fidgeting more than you had been throughout the whole interview.
Yes, I'm like, oh, this is a hard question. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a T-shirt. I'm not wearing it now, but I have a T-shirt that on the front says, "I'm smarter than I look," and on the back it says, "But I'm dumber than you think." Truer statement was never uttered.
That's awesome.
Where can people connect with you? Facebook, email, snail mail?
Yeah,
TikTok, Instagram, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah, social media has exploded. I'm not cool enough yet to be on TikTok.
I can't figure it out.
I'm on Facebook, Twitter.
What's your handle on Twitter?
And my handle on Twitter is at Lori G 1408.
Okay.
Which is a nod to Stephen King.
Here's a fun fact for you. Are you familiar with Stephen King's book, Needful Things?
Yes, I am.
I lived in the town where the movie was shot.
Nice.
Yes, and the house that they used was, about 5 houses up from me.
Oh, my God, I would have been there every day.
Oh, and you know what? Do you remember the TV show The Beachcombers?
Yes, an old Canadian show.
Yes, and do you remember Molly's Reach?
Yes.
The restaurant?
Yeah.
Well, the house that they used in Needful Things in the movie was kitty corner to Molly's Reach.
Nice. That's so interesting.
Anyway, so Facebook, how do they, or do you have an author page there?
Not yet. I'm working on making my own website, so I don't have an author page on Facebook, but I have a personal page. I write about, or I post about my writing there. Twitter.
So how do they find you on Facebook?
Yes, just Lori Green.
Lori Green, no E?
Yeah. Nope, just like the color.
Okay.
And Instagram is Lori M. Green, because my middle name is Marie. So.
Okay. Anywhere else? You're working on a website, so okay.
Yeah, I'm working on it. I'd like to post my published flash fictions, my published poetry. So there's a lot of things that I'm working on right now this year.
Well, let's make 23 the year to make things happen.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you have any writing goals as a New Year's resolution for 2023?
I did. It's to finish my novel and publish my poetry chapbook. Yeah, those were my 2 biggest things.
All right. Well, you know what? You've already said that you're going to lean on some people to get one of those done. So let's help you get that done.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I will be reaching out to so many people.
Well, it's good that you can have people to lean out to, right? Reach out to.
Yes, yes.
Can you share one final poem with us?
Yeah, for sure.
Don't feel obligated. If you don't, you don't. If you do, you do.
No, I have.
No pressure, Lori.
You know what? Since I mentioned it, I'm going to read the poem I wrote for my father.
You're going to share that with us?
I am.
Oh, thank you, Lori.
Here we go. It's called Without You. And here it is. So are you going to take a drink first?
Yes. Have some Kleenex handy.
Okay. You left last night without saying goodbye. What was there really to say? You left long ago, your heart still beating, yet no place in your mind to remember, to tell the stories we shared once upon a time. In that space in between life and death, birth and disease, where you forgot who I was and how much I loved you. Did you go freely, gentle into that darkest night, eager to leave, arms wide, welcoming death, now free to walk among the angels? Or were you filled with rage, as I am now, cursing God, looking back at what was left behind? Funny that phrase, he passed away, as if you were only here for a moment in time, a fleeting memory, passing like a ghost in the night, not the solid presence you had in my heart. So sorry for your loss, they say, not knowing the deep chasm of grief that still cleaves my chest, now a gaping hole, suffocating, threatening to swallow me whole, leaving me forever changed. The first time your calloused hands held my tiny palm and called me baby. You told me once, and only once, that you loved me, but I always knew without the words you could not bring yourself to say. And now those words split my tongue and fall on deaf ears, no longer alive. My heart lies shattered, a bleeding wound that will never heal without you in my life. And that's it.
Take a deep breath. Thank you for sharing that. Have you shared that with anybody before?
I shared it right after his funeral. I shared it with some people on Facebook.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing it on my show.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me read it to, your listeners and to everyone out there.
Are you okay?
I am now. Yep. I made it through. I usually can't make it through without my voice cracking, but
you did well.
Thank you.
Take your right hand, place it over your left shoulder, and give yourself a pat on the back, because that was hard.
Oh,
that was hard.
You.
And I'm very proud that you got through that.
Thank you.
You're very
I appreciate
it. I got a little tear in my eye. That's because I poked my eye the other day. But
I moved you to tears.
You know what? I used to be, like I said, I was on the streets for many years, and I was one of those tough guys who, didn't cry, didn't, no emotions or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I got hospitalized in 2010 for 5 months, almost died.
Oh,
and ever
God.
since then, I've been a weeping basket of emotion.
Oh, really?
Oh, you remember the old Maury Povich show? You are the father. Well, I cry at that. I cry at anything now, and I'm proud to say it.
Good. Good.
Yes, I think for too many years I couldn't cry at my mom's funeral or and so it was all bottled up, and then now finally 40 years of not being able to is coming out. So anyway, that's enough about me. In closing, what would you tell anyone who might be too afraid to take a chance on being published? And you can say this to yourself too.
Yeah, to just go for it. Life is too short.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wish I had, taken my writing seriously years ago and realized that it was a legit career path, instead of, oh, you have to go into this trade or that trade, like, writer, poet. It's a legit career path. So, go for it. And don't let anyone hold you back. And, if it's your dream, then, follow it.
Absolutely. Once upon a time, though, you had to rely on the big five publishing companies to get you out there.
Yes.
But with today's technology, anybody can do it.
Yeah. And there, like you said, the big five, but there's a lot of independent publishers now.
Yeah.
So, and if, one doesn't accept you, you move on to the next.
Absolutely. So, absolutely. Lori, this has been absolutely fun. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, this, like I said, this is fun. Anybody listening, if you have any questions for Lori, you can send an email to randy.btlpodcast@gmail.com and I can get it to her, or you can reach her through the many means that she said. But if you have any questions about the show or for her, don't hesitate to reach out. Lori.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So thank you again for doing this.
You're welcome.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Between the Lines. We hope you enjoyed our discussion and were inspired to either start writing or to keep on writing. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions for future episodes or guests, you can reach out to us by sending an email to randy.btlpodcast@gmail.com. Use comment or suggestion in the subject line. For a copy of the transcript of this or any other episode, just send us an email using transcript as the subject line and indicate which season and episode you would like a transcript for. Visit my website, therandylacey.ca, where you can purchase one of my books, read my blog, and yes, even hear every episode of this podcast. If you have enjoyed what you've heard and would like to hear more, click the Buy Me a Coffee button at the top right corner of the page to help cover the costs associated with keeping this show available to you. If you're ever feeling overwhelmed by the many lines in your life, take a deep breath and remember the wise words of Winnie the Pooh. Sometimes the smallest things take up the most room in your heart. Until next time, keep on keeping between the lines.